Welcome back to HRM. This is Module 8, the module on employee development. I can't promise that this one will be the best one, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the shortest, so enjoy. Employee development is that work of preparing our current employees for the future, for the organization's future, for their future as individuals. Employee development is prospective. It's all about the future. Organizations and their employees must constantly expand their knowledge, skills, and their ability to participate in different behaviors in order to meet customer needs and compete in today's demanding and rapidly changing business environment. HRM has in place a process for employee development that prepares employees to help the organization meet its goals in the future. Development implies learning that is not necessarily related to the employee's current job. Instead, it prepares employees for other jobs or positions in the organization and increases their ability to move into jobs that may or may not yet exist. Development may help employees prepare for changes in responsibilities and requirements in their current jobs, such as changes resulting from technology, new work design, new customers, new products, new services, and the like. This is accomplished through a combination of formal education, of intentional job experiences, intentional relationships, sometimes the assessment of personality and abilities to help employees better understand who they are in the world around them, and it is all framed at preparing them and preparing the organization for the future. I'm sure you recall that our previous module was about training. There's obviously a relationship between training and development, and it's very easy to confuse these two concepts, these two functional areas of human resource management, particularly because in practice, training and development are often merged into a single function. But here's the distinction between training, which was Module 7, and employee development, which is Module 8. So the focus of training, remember, was on helping employees to do their current jobs better. So training is about the current situation, current world, current organization, current people, current processes, current job. Development, on the other hand, is future-oriented. It's about preparing our employees for the next job, the next change in technology, the next opportunity, the next whatever. Some other comparisons, the use of work experiences. Your textbook suggests that the use of past work experiences is low in training. Here's kind of the thinking behind that. The idea is that the reason we're doing training is because there's a problem. There's something upset in our current work environment that we found that we can do better. And so relying too much on the current situation, or I should say the past situation, where things are not being produced and delivered the way we want them to be, is probably not the best idea. And so use of current and past work experiences in the training environment is low. I put a question mark there. I'm not sure whether that's entirely right or not. But it's definitely the case that in the world of employee development, the use of work experiences is high. In fact, this is one of the best ways to do employee development, is to help our employees take a more reflective, more thoughtful, more intentional look at the work they do, at the experiences they've had, at the relationships they've had with other people, try to make judgments on them and try to help them think more about how they themselves could improve things, could take steps to help the organization better meet its intended objectives. The goal is different, right? The goal of training is preparation for the current job. Do the current job today, tomorrow, this week. Development, future-oriented, not preparation for the current job, but preparation for a future, including a future that's not entirely known, and the future is never entirely known, right? And then what about employee participation? Your textbook suggests that in training, Employee participation is required. I think that's probably right most of the time. But I do hope that organizations and the organization that you're going to work in will have opportunities for employees to learn how to do their current jobs better that aren't necessarily required, right? I hope we have some opportunities in place that are oriented toward the present, that are not necessarily required, that help employees think about how to do their jobs better and learn how to do their jobs better, whether it's required or not. On the other hand, your textbook suggests that development is voluntary. Again, I think that's probably right most of the time. But, if we have employees who we really believe in, who we really believe have a future in a bigger position with a broader reach, that has a bigger impact on the organization and the way that this employee can contribute to the firm, contribute broadly to society, contribute to the field, contribute to the industry. I hope we do things in those situations that maybe make it voluntary plus, maybe not required, but maybe strongly encouraged or almost required or something like that. But in general, I think this framework is a good way of thinking about this distinction between training and development. Big picture, training present, development future. Before we can get into career development per se, it seems that we need to say just a few words about careers. What's a career? What I think of as kind of a traditional idea of a career is that one finishes high school, finishes college, exits the military, whatever happens that gets them to that kind of early 20-something point in their life. They start an entry-level job that somehow may be related to some past experiences or to what their parents do or to what their friends are doing or whatever. And from that entry-level position, they sort of spend the next 40 years in basically that same industry, in basically that same type of firm, and over the next 40 years, they sort of climb the ladder, right? You start off in an entry-level position for a while, you do that pretty well, you show the firm that you're willing to take on some more responsibilities, you become a first-level supervisor, do that for a while, pretty good at it. If you're happy there, you stay in that first-level supervisor role for the bulk of your career. If you want to advance and the opportunity for advancement is there, you eventually sort of jump into the first tier of management, do that for a few years, meet some people, show that you've got some ideas, show that you can help the firm get better and show that you're a strategic thinker, you become a middle manager, and so on, kind of climb the ladder up. And so, what would that look like? Well, in human resources, for example, the typical first job in a career in human resource management is either a specialist or a generalist. So a specialist is someone who is committed to one or sometimes two, but typically one particular human resource function. And so one might have as one's first job, training specialist, compensation specialist, employee relations specialist. You get the idea, right? Or one could start off as a generalist. And so generalist positions cross functions. They tend to be more customer service oriented to help employees connect different resources that are available within the firm, help the firm's management think strategically and cross-functionally about how human resources can be used better and whatnot. Okay, so you start off in the specialist role, for example. You do that role for a little while. You're happy at it. You're good at it. You have some interest in being a leader, being a manager. Eventually, a position opens up. You apply for it. Guess what? You're now the training and development supervisor. Do that for a while. Eventually, you're the training and development manager. Do that for a while. Eventually you become, kind of an assistant associate director of human resources. Do that for a while, opportunity presents itself, you've got the knowledge skills, you become a CHRO, become a chief human resources officer. On the generalist side, start off as a generalist, maybe eventually become a senior generalist, there's usually another step there. Become a supervisor, manager, assistant, associate director, CHRO. Right? That would be a traditional career in human resource management. Right? At an accounting firm, you would start off as an associate, right? Work as an associate, 80, 90 hours a week for a few years, eventually become a junior partner, eventually become a senior partner. Staying in accounting firms, and staying in the subset of the accounting world that you happen to be in, whatever that's in. However, recent changes in the economy, changes in the way people work, changes in the way the world is, including things like downsizing, restructuring, automation, etc., are increasingly becoming the norm. And so this concept of a linear, progressive career that when I was in college, I was taught to think was the thing you wanted, the thing that marks a successful human being is having a career like this. The concept of a career has become a lot more fluid than that traditional view. So, beyond knowing job requirements, employees today need to understand the business in which they're working. They need to be able to cultivate valuable relationships with coworkers, managers, vendors, suppliers, customers. They also need to follow trends in the field and industry so that they can apply technology and knowledge that will match emerging priorities and emerging needs. So rather than the traditional idea of the career that I described before, more employees these days are following, a kind of a spiral career path, if you will, in which they cross boundaries between specializations, cross boundaries between organizations, cross boundaries among industries. And as organizations provide for employee developments, and as employees, are taking control of their own careers and being responsible for their own careers, they'll need to, figure out how it is that their interests, skills, and weaknesses can prepare them both for the jobs of today and jobs of the future. And of course, also seek development experiences that involve jobs, relationships, formal education, and whatnot. And so these spiral, if you will, career paths, we call protein careers, right? In the sense that they're not the traditional climb the ladder in the same industry, maybe in the same organization, in the same field. They go up and down and left and right and whatnot. In many ways, my own career is an example of a protein type career in some ways. While it's true that I've worked in higher ed most of my career, which I have, I haven't really stayed in the same industry. I started off working in a school of education, then went to a community college, then a law school, and now a business school. All right. So even though it's in higher ed, those are four very different kind of places, right? So there's a protein element to that. If you look at my job history, you also see something kind of weird, right? Started off as a faculty member in education, then I became an administrator, right? So it kind of was I was an associate dean of a division at a community college. So that's kind of a junior management kind of position. And I became a vice president of that college. So that was I had kind of a big jump there in the middle. I skipped a couple steps. So vice president of college, this makes sense so far. The change from an ed school to the community college is a little weird, but it's still making sense, right? It's following along a path of progressive responsibility, of higher compensation, of broader impact to organizations as a whole. Everything's making sense so far. Then I go from being a vice president of a community college. The next job is what? A vice president at a bigger college, or a president of a smaller college, something like that. No, I go back to being an assistant dean at a law school. That's kind of weird. I don't know, take down a couple steps in the hierarchy of higher ed. Oh, that's kind of weird. And then from being an assistant dean at a law school back to being a professor of management, right? That doesn't make sense. Now, in my case, it wasn't about downsizing or restructuring. In my case, it was about family considerations in terms of geography and in terms of a bunch of other things. That makes it no less common an example, though. Dual income families are the norm these days rather than the exception, and so it's the path that I followed. It's worked out okay, but it's a path that when one tries to rationalize it, when one tries to narrativize it, tell it as a story that makes sense, that you endorse, that you think is a good story, it's a tough story to tell, right? And so, helping employees figure out both how to conceptualize these protein careers, but more importantly, how to continue to get meaning and allegiance to organizations and build a track record of progressive responsibility within these protein careers is an important consideration in the world of employee development. So let's get into it. There are four main tools, four main approaches to working with employees in developing themselves and developing their careers. The first two most significant ones are the use of formal education opportunities and job experiences. And then also, kind of as supplements to that, are developing particular relationships with people who can be helpful. Call them mentors or rabbis, or call them by lots of different names, among others, not just those type of folks. And then using assessment activities to help figure out where knowledge and skill deficits are and identify areas for potential growth. So the next several slides go through these four approaches to employee development. So the first of our four approaches to employee development is formal education. And so by formal education I mean college courses, including certificates from colleges that bundle a bunch of courses together and call them a certificate, as well as degrees. And so if you don't have a baccalaureate degree, then the bachelor's degree. In the world of business, the next step after that is either the MBA or a master's degree, kind of in your specialized field. Workshops, short courses, lectures at local colleges, lectures in local chambers of commerce, lunch meetings, simulations, business games, professional conferences, either related to your industry or related to your job function. So lots of opportunities for formal education. One thing to highlight about this particularly is because most of the formal education that most of us get after college is not really that formal in the sense that it's structured and documented and all that kind of stuff. It's important as you're acquiring these formal education experiences to keep really good records of them, right? To keep really good records of conferences you've attended, of badges you've earned on the websites that give badges. Keep track of conferences you've attended, of workshops, of all that kind of stuff, so that you have a good way to sort of communicate to the world what your formal education is. And so, when you graduate from UTA, you get a transcript. Think about how it is you would sort of fashion your own transcript-like thing, that you might include as an attachment to your resume, or might include as on your website or somewhere else, that communicates all of these other educational activities you've done. Some of the career development websites give you some tools for this. You can do this on LinkedIn to some extent, though not really very well. But think about keeping those records and keeping track of that stuff. Many firms, especially the larger firms, will have in-house training centers, development centers, where these opportunities are made available to employees, or certain employees are encouraged to take advantage of them, or something like that. But these formal education activities include things that are on the work site, off site, virtually. the world of what we think of as formal education is a lot broader than it was when I was a kid, certainly a lot broader than it was when my parents were at the early stages of their careers. We don't think of formal education now as just high school, community college, graduate school. Formal education includes all of these little piecemeal things that we pick up in different formats for different reasons from different places, that we kind of, when stacked together, they add up to something significant, right? When I do a 1 hour CLE, a 1 hour continuing legal education thing on the internet or down at the Dallas Bar Association or whatever, is that formal education? Definitely. Is that 1 hour thing that came with lunch a thing that I would put on my resume? Certainly not. However, if I do one of those every couple weeks, if I do combine that with some stuff on the web, I kind of have something together, that I can call 50 hours of continuing legal education in the areas of XYZ. So think about how that's going to work for you in your career with all of your preferences, and equally importantly, how it is you can advise the employees that will be working for you or will be working elsewhere in the firm that you'll be advising, how it is that they can also best capture all of the formal education experiences that they've had. The use of assessment tools to aid in employee development is very common and a very important approach. The idea of assessment tools is that by helping employees sort of figure out where they are in terms of particular knowledges, particular skills, particular attitudes and dispositions, other behaviors, it helps them better understand where they need to go. What is the gap between where I am now and where I need to be to move into whatever, the next level in the organization, the next type of position I want, to move from being a line employee to a manager. And so there's lots of these assessment vehicles out there. There are lots of, there's psychological assessments that some people think are really useful. I think the most common one used in career development these days is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, that if you took the OB class, you studied the MBTI. The MBTI is a mixed bag. In order to believe that the MBTI has value to it, you have to believe that there's only 16 kinds of people in the world, and that seems like a bit of a stretch. But there's some utility to it. There's a company that uses the name Disc Brand. Their Disc Brand has this a whole collection of assessment tools that help individuals identify patterns of behavior in how they work and work preferences and that kind of stuff. So they're kind of formal assessments like that. As far as leadership inventories, there are hundreds of them that give you cool names like animal names or colors or something, depending on what kind of a leader you are. Okay. So lots of different kinds of tools that are out there on the market that often employee career development centers will have available to employees. Our career development center here at UTA, the Lockheed Martin Career Development Center, has many of these available to you at no additional cost, and they are expensive to take, believe me, that you can take without having to pay anything extra. So once you get back on campus, whenever that is, you can check those out if you want to. In addition, there's lots of less formal, less structured assessment data. Being able to get feedback from your current manager beyond the performance appraisal process, being able to sit down with her or sit down with him and say, hey, I'm here right now. I really like what I'm doing. I like this type of work. I think I can contribute more to the firm. Help me understand what kind of things I need to do what additional things I need to know and be able to do in order to be a supervisor in a few years, if that opportunity should come up. So feedback from managers, feedback from peers within the organization, feedback from your subordinates, if you're already in a supervisor role, from customers, from vendors, from suppliers, whatever. The real trick with getting feedback from other human beings is that obviously you never know when they're being honest with you. You never know when they're being truthful with you. And this isn't just a throwaway comment. It is virtually near impossible to figure out whether feedback from someone else, whoever that someone else is honest and frank or not. Lots of people have lots of motivations for not being entirely honest and giving feedback. And sometimes they sort of think it's for the employee's own good. Like, I can think of times that I've done performance appraisals with people and things were not going well, right? And I painted a slightly more optimistic picture of the future than was probably realistic, because I thought it would sort of help motivate the employee to see that it was possible to get there. Now, don't get me wrong, I may let them know that there were problems and the problems were significant and the problems needed to be addressed. But I was a little bit more optimistic about the future when I spoke with him or her than I really was in my head, because I had this kind of idea that completely demoralizing the person with the complete and honest truth probably wouldn't be good for them or for me or for the firm. And so it's not always with bad motives that folks will be dishonest with you. Same thing happens at the other extreme, right? So other folks will paint a less desirable picture of the way things are than they really perceive them to be. So it's not easy, right? And the way that they say that the idea of self-concept, of our conception, our understanding of who we are in the world, comes from kind of two factors primarily. It comes from reflected appraisals and social comparisons. So a reflected appraisal is that what I think of myself is what I think you think of me, right? So I have no idea if I'm any good at doing this, teaching on the internet thing. And so you could tell me just about anything and I believe you and I'd take it to be the God's honest truth and you're the expert at it, just because I've never done it before and don't have a lot of feedback on it, right? So the reflected appraisal is what I think you think of me. So if you think that these goofy videos on the slides are useless and stupid, and you think that yourself, and you tell that to me, and I believe you, that I think you think that's true, right? What I think you think of me, and I think you think that's true, that becomes a reflected appraisal. I take your appraisal and I adopt it as my own. There's a whole bunch of ifs in that sentence. I didn't keep track of how many there were. There's a whole bunch of ifs in that sentence, right? It assumes you're telling the truth. It assumes you know what you're talking about, because you might not. It assumes you're not a sociopath. It assumes you're not, that you don't have any other nefarious motivations. It assumes that you don't care about my feelings, because if I'm getting objective feedback from you, I don't want you to care about my feelings or how it's going to affect my psychology or how I, feel about myself in terms of self-esteem or anything like that. So there's so many ifs in there. So reflected appraisals are they're useful, but we can never know when people are telling the truth, and it's so complicated to try to get to the bottom of them. The other one are social comparisons, which I think can be a little bit more objective, though certainly not totally objective, right? If I'm a salesperson and I'm in the same market as somebody else selling the same products, and she's selling 10% more than I am, I think it's fair in the world of sales. In the world of sales, you eat what you kill. You're a good salesperson if you sell a lot of stuff. So I think it's fair for me to think that I'm a 10% less good. I'm a 10% worse salesperson than she is, because her numbers are consistently 10% above mine. Now, a one-to-one social comparison like that is of little use, but if I can compare myself to the whole range of people who do a particular kind of work, through, how many people in my industry have the certifications I have, how my college GPA compares to the college GPA of those sitting next to me. There's at least some objectivity to that. Again, it doesn't mean that it's the end all be all, right? If you have your SAT score in the 99th percentile, it doesn't necessarily make you brilliant, but it tells you something, right? It tells you that you have a particular kind of intelligence that's particularly useful in that kind of situation. And so many people have taken that measurement that being in the 99th percentile really, really means something. So lots of different tools out there, some humans, some psychometric, and probably some others as well to help us get a better sense of where we are so that we can bridge that gap to where we want to be for the next step in our careers. Third category of career development tools, career development approaches, is a greater diversity of job experience and having particular job experiences that will get us ready for whatever the future holds for that next job, that next industry, that next position, whatever. And so it's a combination of the relationships that we build in our current work experiences, the problems we solve, the demands that we can tackle, the tasks we accomplish, and all of the other features and experiences of our work lives that build up these experiences that can potentially develop us for the future when they're shaped in the right way. Your textbook authors say that most employee development occurs here. I think they're absolutely right. And I'm not someone who always says experience is great, education sucks. No. But I think they're absolutely right that it is absolutely the case that the most profound experiences of career development happen through our work, happen through the work we're doing, being fully engaged in the current experiences we're having while keeping an eye to the future. Next couple slides talk through some of these particular types of job experiences. So how can we fashion job experiences in order to help our employees develop for the future? Well, one way is through job assignments, right? Through particular job assignments that are given to particular employees with an eye to their own futures. One is job enlargement. I think you remember from a few modules ago what job enlargement is, where employees are given a particular task in addition to the kind of task they're doing now. So it increases the variety of skills they're using, increases the diversity of knowledge they have, increases the types of people they interact with. Is it reasonable to enlarge an employee's job just for the purpose of developing him or her for a particular future? Absolutely, yes. I've done it many times. I can think of in my last position, I had someone who worked for me who was a great database manager, but she only managed data, right? She was a database manager who did really good work and was really good with human beings as well. And not all database managers are really good with human beings as well, but she was. All of our positions in the organization that I was with, all of our supervisory level positions required you to have experience as a supervisor in order to apply for the job. Well, how the heck do you get supervisory experience without being a supervisor? Well, your current boss takes your current job and adds some supervisory responsibilities to it. So we started off with, I had a couple summer interns who would typically report to me. It was a very small office, so flat organization. They would have typically reported to me. I had them report to her, not because it was better immediately for the organization for them to report to her, not because it really made sense in any kind of abstract philosophical organization structure way. I did it just so that she could have the experience of being a supervisor, right? So it enlarged her job with a particular additional assignment, so that now she has on her resume, been a supervisor, right? In larger firms, using job rotation is a common tool for developing for the future. You particularly see this in larger firms that have management training programs, so that when you start with the firm, you spend a couple months in HR, you spend a couple months in production, you spend a couple months in the finance world, a couple months here, and then you're ready to start a job in a particular department, having a sense of the work throughout the organization. So that job rotation example I gave, I guess that particular example is probably more of a training example than a development example, but it has a development purpose as well, right? It has a development purpose in the sense that it prepares these management trainees for the future job that they're going to have when this rotation cycle is over. Another way is to transfer someone from one location to another, to have had the experience of multiple locations, to transfer from one department to another, to have experience with different departments and see the big picture of how the industry works. For multinational and global organizations, being able to structure a transfer to an abroad location is particularly valuable in career development. Obviously, promotions, downward move, a demotion, really? Yeah, maybe. Particularly if you have someone who had a meteoric rise in his or her career and skipped a couple levels, hey, why don't you spend a couple months going back down and you were never really a first level supervisor. You're going to keep your current salary, don't get me wrong, but you were never really a first level supervisor. Why don't you go supervise a work team for a couple months, then come back up, just so you kind of know what it is that first level supervisors do, okay? Internships or externships, where an externship would be an opportunity outside the organization that's created for someone to have particular experiences. Internship would be within the current firm, period of time. Good luck trying to find a job that gives you a sabbatical, unless you're a university professor or, I don't know, I've heard of some pastors and other religious leaders that get sabbaticals, but outside of those couple, I don't know anybody else in the world that's given a lot of sabbaticals. So there's some assignment ideas, and we'll go on to some more thoughts about how job experience can be used for development. The fourth of the common employee development tools is helping employees to build meaningful interpersonal relationships with those who can help and support them throughout their current stage of their career. Employees can develop skills, increase knowledge, build their professional networks, learn about informal organizational rules, learn about the things that aren't written in the textbooks through these interactions with experienced members of the organization. There are a couple common types. One of the common types is a mentor. A mentor is an experienced, productive, successful, usually senior employee who helps develop the less experienced employee, and in this relationship, that lesser experienced employee is usually called a protege, or contemporary programs sometimes call them mentees, but protege is the better term. Most mentoring relationships develop informally as the result of shared interests, shared values, something that the mentor and protege have in common. Mentoring relationships can also develop as part of the organization's planned effort to bring together successful senior employees with less experienced employees. These are formal mentoring programs. Some formal mentoring programs help create the structure that will allow a mentoring relationship to blossom, to come into being between successful senior experienced employees and less experienced employees. Formal mentoring programs, in particular, can help the organization address that problem of mentoring being more challenging for women within organizations and for ethnic minorities within organizations. More on that in a couple slides on the glass ceiling. A mentoring program also can ensure that high potential employees are matched with wise, experienced, thoughtful, and trusted mentors in key areas. Mentors and proteges can both benefit from the mentoring relationship. It can be, a fair exchange. Organizations sometimes use group mentoring programs, which are kind of hokey and tend not to work very well, where a number of proteges are assigned to a single mentor. Another of these common relationships is a coach, a professional coach. And so a coach is a peer or a manager from a different department maybe, who works with an employee to help motivate him or her, help him or her develop knowledge and skills in a particular area, and also to provide reinforcement and feedback to the improvements. Reinforcement to the progress that the employee is making, and feedback all along the way. Coaches come in a few different varieties. Sometimes it's a one-on-one working relationship with the employee. Sometimes it's helping employees to learn for themselves. For example, helping them find experts and teaching them how to obtain feedback, constructive feedback from others. And sometimes it's even just providing resources from which the employee can grow in terms of knowledge and skills and the experiences necessary to be more successful and to advance in the future throughout the organization. Here is the suggestion of a 4-step model for career development. I don't know that it adds a whole bunch. I think it makes sense, right? I think it makes sense to have this process in place, but it doesn't seem to me that often enough these steps can kind of come in this order and be this linear and this logical. But if you can create a situation like this for your employees, or even better yet, for yourself, this sounds like a great idea, right? So it starts off with the first step of data gathering, a process of collecting information in order to figure out, where your strengths are, what your behavioral tendencies are, what aptitudes you have, what past achievements might signal about future possibilities, where your career interests are, using those psychometric tools maybe that we talked about before to kind of do a self-assessment. And the second step is feedback, where you as the employer, you as the development coach, whatever your role in the relationship is, give the employee feedback about knowledge and skills, how the current assets of knowledge and skills contribute to the organization in its current shape and in what the organization's current plans are, but more importantly, how the skills and knowledge and potential that the employee has can contribute to the organization in the future. From there, the employee is guided through a process of goal setting, where you'll work with the employee to figure out, is there a particular position in the organization that you would like to be your next step, your second to next step? In other words, this is, the 5-year plan question. What level of skill and experience and knowledge do you need to apply for that position, and how in the next 3, 4, 5 years are you going to get that level of knowledge and skill and experience? So that's the third step. And then the fourth step is the action planning and follow-up step, right? Where employees prepare a plan in order to achieve the career goal they have in mind. The plan may involve a combination of development methods. I think it should involve a combination of development methods. And then the outcome, the deliverable, takes the form of a career development plan where the employee commits himself to doing certain things, but equally importantly, the organization commits to doing a number of things, right? To providing resources for the development, whether those are human resources already in the organization, like mentors and coaches. Maybe it's a resource outside of the organization, like a consultant executive coach, which are becoming more and more common. Maybe it's funds to travel to professional conferences, whatever it is. This action planning and follow-up step is where the employee commits herself to a particular plan and asks the organization to make some commitments to her as well in order to help that plan come into reality. I think you're probably familiar with this concept of the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling sort of describes this phenomenon that even as our organizations are becoming more and more diverse, even as our work teams are becoming more and more diverse at the line level, at the supervisory level, and at the middle manager level, there seems to be an invisible barrier above that middle manager level that seems to disproportionately keep women and keep ethnic minorities from crossing into that range of top jobs, into executive type jobs. It's theorized that this is caused, at least in part, by a lack of access to training programs, developmental job experiences, and those interpersonal relationships that we talked about before. The most current research actually tells us that it's this last piece, the piece of a lack of meaningful interpersonal relationships that can help in the development process, that seem to be missing from the development of women and ethnic minorities at that middle stage of the organization's hierarchy. And so putting developmental systems in place, putting employee development systems in place that can help break this glass ceiling likely means ensuring the access that's missing, right? Ensuring access to training programs, to developmental job experiences, to developmental relationships. And everything that we're seeing now tells us that they're the developmental relationships that are the most challenging. And it's, in part, I understand for women why this comes, for women in particular, why this challenge of developmental relationships comes into being. How is it that that a sort of professional mentoring relationship becomes the type of professional relationship that's not only a mentorship, but also folds in friendship and folds in a desire on the mentor's part for the protege to succeed? I think I know. It's because that transition seems to happen in the super informal contexts. It happens at lunch. It happens going out for drinks after work. It happens in those kind of less formal ways. And I know in my own experience, particularly being a married person, inviting women, and if it's a protege, it's usually younger women, right? Inviting younger women to a lot of lunches, to a lot of cocktail hours, to a lot of dinners and stuff, puts one in a very strange position, right? It puts one in a strange position in relation to one's primary relationship, where jealousy and that kind of stuff can sometimes crop in. And it also puts someone in a strange position in relation to their professional position, where the organization's concern about sexual harassment and in managers making advances on subordinates is such a significant detriment to the organization. It's tough, and I've really only had one real protege in my career, and she happened to have been a woman. The way that I was able to manage this was by making it kind of a family affair, if you know what I mean. Affair is the wrong word, but by as our relationship was starting, we had her over to dinner, and she got to meet the wife, she got to meet the wife, she got to meet my spouse, Claire, she got to meet our kids. She would frequently participate in things with us kind of at a family level. And at least in my experience, and that was just one limited experience with one single protege, that sort of served to help us avoid those pitfalls that come. And so, why does this disproportionately affect women? Well, because the executive class is still disproportionately men, right? And so there isn't that same gender, same biological sex possibility for pairs that exists for men, right? And so I think all of these are important. All these are relevant. But for my money, I think the trick for us to break the glass ceiling, both for the individuals who work for us, for the 65% of you out there who are women, and for us broadly culturally, is to find ways to get these deeper relationships that men have had with men for some time, get us to be able to cross that sex barrier, so that these relationships can have the same effect for women and for ethnic minorities as they have for white guys for time immemorial. Succession planning is a process that the organization goes through to try to identify individuals who are current employees within the organization who, for whatever reason, we think have the potential to advance significantly within the firm. Sort of keeping track of them, making sure that they're aware of developmental opportunities, making sure that they're aware of position vacancies when they come up, so that we can have a bench of managers and executives who are rip roaring ready to go when those vacancies do come about. And at the executive level, it means in addition to all that, having a chart, right? Just like, for those of you who are football fans, how football teams have depth charts, so that when Dak Prescott gets hurt, we know that it's Andy Dalton coming in next. Succession planning also is about building depth charts. It's about knowing that, hey, when I lose my current CHRO, I know that I've got an associate director of HR who's there and ready to step into the position. When I lose my current CFO, I know that the senior manager of whatever, of payables, is ready to potentially be the next CFO. So it's about both making sure that the employees themselves are aware of developmental opportunities, are aware that the organization believes in them and wants them to be a part of the organization long term, but then also building that depth chart, right? Having a plan for who those people are, not just kind of in the abstract, but writing it down in a depth chart kind of style, so that we remember to keep those people in mind. We remember to do that. The rest of the slide has a few more suggestions. Senior management reviewing talent, ensuring that talent is available, provide developmental experiences, help attract and retain managerial employees. Well, obviously. So that's succession planning. The next slide suggests a series of steps that a firm could go through to do succession planning. So the end of this chapter in your textbook has this kind of, what I think, a very strange section on dysfunctional managers, and it sort of tries to relate it to how dysfunctional managers can get in the way of the employee development process. It just seems weird to me. All these things are certainly true. I don't know that it gives us good information about what to do about it, other than, don't hire jerks to be managers. When you do hire jerks to be managers, get them out of the managerial role. If you can't get them out of them, assuming that you aren't able to develop them out of being jerks, I'm not sure what more to say about it. So I'm just going to wrap up this module on employee development, which I think was the shortest module of the semester, and hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy the reading in the textbook.